Intuition is a dangerous thing. Reality defies understanding. Reality defies understanding. Reality defies understanding. Intuition is a dangerous thing. Last time, y'all successfully dealt with the threat that had been placed before you. You killed all of the patients that had this fungal infection that was taking over their minds and turning them into something else. You found the source of the fungus deep in the Eden pit and burned it, turning the pit into a boiling cauldron that looked like blood. And while several of you were hospitalized, you've all had plenty of time now to recover. Months have passed here, and we're going to get into home scenes, but we can start even before the home scenes with working on your skill improvements. So, assuming y'all have been keeping track of those checkboxes on Foundry, we can go ahead and click some of those buttons.
Hunter got another 4% on firearms because he needed that.
What's he up to at this point?
70.
Oh my god. Hell yeah.
Potentially the most competent Delta Green character with firearms in this time period.
Potentially. I mean,
got a lot of fours.
Yeah, that's pretty excellent. If you take aim with a gun, that's plus 20%. It just takes a turn to aim. And like if you take like a surprise attack on somebody, you kind of always are assumed to be aiming, you know, that kind of thing, because you have time to when you're so Hunter just don't miss at this point if you don't want him to miss. So that's a good option. Excellent. Anyone else have exciting things we see here? Itai just has a lot of skills improved because you just tried.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
I mean, I was tired for most of this last thing, so I just failed a lot.
Yeah, that's fair.
That +4 bureaucracy and +4 persuasion are very tasty looking.
Oh, I'm happy for the +4 to human. Now I'm at 77.
Oh my god. The human lie detector.
My new character is at 74 search somehow.
Sheesh.
Nice. I see everybody failed at some unarmed combat, as is tradition.
Yeah.
Which is weird because my unarmed combat is now 64.
That's well, you were tired. You know, you were eepy. We can forgive you for that. Okay, so the time passes here, and over those months, you know, as you all are recovering in the hospital and stuff. Not that we necessarily need to get into home scenes like directly with these, but or even like scenes in general. But I mean, High Tide and Hunter, you two are going to be in the hospital for like weeks, probably fully recovering.
I've got 7 total points of stat damage and 10 points of HP damage.
Yeah, so those are going to take weeks to fix as you're just in the hospital for a while, eventually discharged, but still like slowly healing even when you're home. Because these are just long-term injuries. But over the course of a couple months, you do get better. What does that look like for the two of you? Like, are you two the type that will fight to get discharged early because you just like, yeah, you feel fine, you want to get out of here? Or are you the type to just like let the doctors work? Like, what's it look like?
I think Hunter's probably pretty zoned out at this point. Mm-hmm. He like doesn't really have that much that he's trying to get back to after all the bonds disintegrating. And I think he's just grateful for the chance to rest. Probably Understood. Requests sleeping meds more than he actually needs, unfortunately. But maybe that's part of getting the POW back to normal.
Possibly, yeah. That would make some sense. Speaking of, you can all refill your hit points, your willpower points, you know, your stat damage if you've taken stat damage, and so on. Because these months will heal you up. What does it look like for High Tide to spend these few months probably hospitalized for a few weeks and so on?
I would definitely make sure that my wife and best friend are informed that I'm in the hospital, so I don't just disappear for a couple months again.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Although it's probably not going to go down well with the wife. That I have a major scar on my neck now.
Yes, it's a pretty gnarly scar, but you did get patched up and saved in time. Um, yeah,
I'm actually going to add that to a wound.
yeah, that's fair. I like that idea. I think that's something I could have suggested when you got the thing, but like I think that makes a lot of sense now. You might it might make sense if you're okay with it. Um, subtracting like a point or two from charisma, from like the scar. You know what I mean? Like it being a visual effect. Not that charisma gets used that often in this game, anyways, but just as like a this is the way my character was hurt kind of thing. Similar to when you guys all had that experience in like the second mission where you woke up in those glass boxes and all had to damage some stats. But I'll leave that up to you or not, whether you think he
Oh, I mean,
tends to like hide it behind collars or something. But
I'll definitely take that because I slipped and fell onto a glass window.
yeah,
So
exactly.
even if I'm not, I took the charisma hit because I have to now live with that.
Yes, yeah. I think there's like an element of, you know, um, the doctors very, very much prioritize saving your life over what it would look like when it was done. You know, because that makes sense. So it's it's a very very ugly scar, but you are alive, and perhaps it will look intimidating either way. Excellent. So yeah, you probably get lots of visits from your wife and friends and stuff, but um, are any of your bonds damaged? I know Hunter is pretty much out of bonds, but
Yeah, I've got 5 points in one-sided bonds for Garrett William and Sapphire.
well,
Um,
Sapphire's dead now, so
Yeah. That's even more one-sided now.
yes.
um, I have two with my aunt and my partner, but I forgot to refill out the partner's identity.
Right. Oops, because of the accidental deletion.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. Well, it would be a new character anyways, so we can invent it. Um, since it's not Sapphire and we haven't experienced a home scene with Hestia yet.
I
Okay.
actually I didn't project on any bonds because it was mostly one hit and then I healed back up before it and then I took 10.
Yeah.
So even if I projected, I still would have gone crazy.
Yeah. That's fair.
I took like 3 hit points. Can I just repair those, or do I need
Yes.
hospital time?
No, you can just over the course of months, those will easily repair. I think you just recover 1 hit point per day automatically, as long as you're like sleeping in a safe, relatively comfortable place.
Okay, I think that'll be part of the damage with my partner. I'm just gonna sleep and shut everyone out and go full depression mode.
Okay, that makes sense to me. So I guess since this is a new character, we don't need to go super deep into that. But yeah, this makes sense. We see a quick montage scene of your partner repeatedly trying to sort of cheer you up in different ways, and Hestia sort of resisting, just resting, and not necessarily being able to share all the things you saw with your partner. And so like there's limited potential support there, even though you might want it. Yeah, so I can absolutely see how that could turn into a bit of a depressive episode.
Yeah. I think it's one of those where like she can make it through work, she can keep her work persona. As soon as she comes home, she goes to bed and sleeps
Yeah,
until it's time to get up and go to work again.
that makes sense. So some distance there just begins as you're not really able to answer the questions your partner has and unable to connect in the same way. And you had one other bond damage, was that correct? Or was it just the partner?
Yes. Her Aunt Chris, who essentially was a parent figure.
Okay, let's see. So how could this manifest? I mean, an easy one. I don't know if you have ideas, but I have like random thoughts.
Sure, go ahead.
I feel like always an easy way to explain bond damage to like family is maybe during this last job, you were so busy with it for like several days in a row. I think it was almost a week for some of it, especially towards the end when we started having more time gaps in there, and then you had to spend time, making sure you weren't contaminated and weren't suffering from the infection or whatever, right? All that stuff. Because you two dove into the waters to like stop that thing before your infection really took hold. So if you were like suddenly and randomly without warning, essentially immediately occupied for like over a week, you may have had family obligations or things, so like birthdays that got missed, or things like that. Maybe you missed a holiday or something during this time just because you were so busy with Delta Green stuff, right? And then again, hard to explain to your family why you were gone, because I mean you could just say it's work, but like you can't really tell them much more than that, or you have to lie and maybe they can tell you're lying, or just throwing some brainstorming out there. I don't know if that helps spark anything.
Yeah, I think she missed a regular meetup with her aunt for work, and then with the depressive episode she missed another, and has kind of been giving short answers and responding only through text and not over the phone.
Yeah, that makes total sense. That makes sense, especially for just a couple points of damage. It's not like you dropped it below half or decimated the bond or anything. It's just, a little bit of tension there and maybe something you could patch up later. But for now, there are some minorly hurt feelings out there, and maybe your Aunt Chris feels a bit neglected or something like that. I don't know, not like fully neglected, but you know what I mean. There's this element of like, oh, doesn't care anymore to come talk with family or whatever. But yeah, sounds good. So we've explained away your bond damage, so you can go ahead and uncheck those. That is sort of the events. I know we very briefly went over them, but sort of the events of these few months after the incident in Montpelier, taking care of that fungus and all that stuff, and then recovering from it. That would then be sort of spring and into summer is kind of the time of year it would be at this point, when all of a sudden, Hunter, could you describe for me, in whatever level of detail you wish, sort of like an ordinary scene for Hunter, like whether it's him waking up and doing something or just something he does in his day to day, like what goes on in Hunter's life?
Well, in the recent years, he's moved to a small city away from the people that he lived close to before, which probably helps to explain the bonds deteriorating. After their first opera, he felt really jaded about the idea of society being a overall good thing for people, seeing how it could be used just kind of as an opportunity for a person or a strange force to worm its way into everybody's lives and control them. So though he feels that the best way for people to live is isolated in the middle of the woods, maybe with a few neighbors, but with very little that you could call an authority or something cohesive keeping the people together. He's been wandering at night in the city and just more or less looking for trouble, thinking that he's going to see some reflection of the things that they experienced in the first opera, and hoping that he can shatter that influence somehow through physical violence. And he's gotten into quite a lot of trouble. And he's done some very bad things that he kind of refuses to acknowledge, but he feels like he's doing a little thing to fight on the side of humanity against something that he thinks was incredibly stupid for him or for anyone to go looking into. And the more he does this, the more paranoid he gets, thinking that because he's not finding what he thinks he should be finding, he's being watched, and the things that he's looking for are watching him all the time and just keeping just out of arm's reach. So he's stalking, trudging, maybe in the middle of a rainy night. Those are the ones that he likes to go walking in the most, maybe because he's least likely to find what he's looking for, and it doesn't feel good to find trouble, but he feels like it's his responsibility to go looking regardless.
I like that. Okay. So I like this framing. I think despite going out on a night where it's potentially less chances of finding what he's looking for out here, trouble. Trouble does find him, as luck or unluck would have it. And I think we see him get approached by a bunch of figures in hoodies. One draws a knife and they surround him, and then we cut to black for a moment as we zoom in on Hunter, and then when we rise back up from the black frame, we see like several people knocked out and Hunter like holding somebody by a collar. Like faces are bloody. Hunter's fists are bloody. His face is bloody. There's just clearly been quite a fight that's happened here. And then Hunter, out of nowhere, as you are holding this figure, just kind of intimidating them as you hold them in front of you. I'm kind of picturing them like half on the ground as you're stooped over them, holding their shirt. All of the sudden, you just scream at max volume involuntarily as terror takes over and grips your entire body. Every muscle tenses up. Your entire adrenaline system kicks into maximum gear, and it's like somebody has just poured cold liquid into all of your veins. Can you give me a sanity check, please? Okay. I'm going to take 1 point of sanity damage for that success. As you are sitting there screaming, hardly realizing that you are even screaming, you remember something. You remember the darkness. It is a rainy night in the woods. You are stalking through the woods. You don't have a light with you. You are trying to avoid something. You have this feeling, whatever you're seeing, it is connected to the other things you have seen before. Your trusty shotgun is in your hands once again. This is the same forest you always see. And though there is no light, you see shadows moving ahead of you. And without thinking, you pull the trigger, beginning to fire your shotgun. And in the muzzle flash of the shotgun, the only light we can really see at the moment, as you repeatedly pull the trigger, we see some of the trees around you are like moving closer and twisting in different ways. And they're all very dark, knotted, gnarly trees. At every flash of light, they get a little bit closer. And then your entire body is pain. You wake back up screaming in this like alleyway with this guy in your hands in front of you, and this guy is just looking at you with wide eyes. He has stopped breathing as he is just like terrified of your own scream that you have just released, and now you're back in control. What do you do?
I just throw him to the ground and start running.
Like he starts skedaddling off in another direction, like scampering half with his hands until he can find his balance and get up because he's just trying to run out as fast as possible. And you just start running.
I'll just start running until I run into something.
So you do run, and we see you run for a while, but we see you pick back up on it eventually. The adrenaline fades, but you keep replaying this memory in your head over and over again. And now we're going to jump over to Hestia. Can you run us through like a day, not a whole day in the life of Hestia, but like a normal moment, just an average part of Hestia's day?
Let's say she's in the middle of a night shift at the hospital. She's essentially gone to like a supply closet and taken a 5-minute nap, and hears an alarm, wakes herself up, and is just kind of blearily getting to her feet to go handle the next emergency, getting her nurse persona back in place.
Absolutely. So perhaps as you leave a patient's room or something like that, and you're back out in the hallway, you also are suddenly gripped by a moment of terror, and a scream erupts from within that you didn't summon yourself. You realize you are screaming because you hear your own scream, and then your mind sees a vision of something you've seen before. But it's very different than the scene we saw with Hunter. This case, you are attending some kind of briefing. You realize in this memory that it is a Delta Green briefing, but you are being briefed on it sort of on the medical details of a case, as that is what Hestia does. And you're being briefed on it as a friendly, not as an agent. There is another doctor, another friendly, who's explaining a situation to you, and he's showing you photos of a man. They appear to be very old black and white photos of a very old man. They are like pictures taken as part of like a medical study, right? They're not like nice pictures. They're just like, here's a guy, on a medical table that was, unconscious while we took these photos of him from several angles, and he's, not wearing a shirt, but he's covered up by a blanket and like all that kind of stuff, right? In black and white. Despite him appearing, unresponsive in the photographs because he's not looking at the camera or anything like that, he's just staring off into the distance. His eyes are open. And there is a bandage on his head. And the man speaking with you says, so this is old Mr. McGee. He was a lobotomy patient in the 50s. But this is an old case that was never really solved. They just kind of figured he ran out and died in the cold. But in the dead of winter, this lobotomy patient just got up and ran out into the woods, and we never saw him again. So we all assumed for the longest time that he just died of exposure. He just ran off into the snow. We don't know how he even got himself to do that, but he did. We just figured it was some kind of freak accident. It was shortly after the procedure happened. Things happen. It was the 50s. Anyways, and here's another picture, and he will click like on a slide deck, the next slide. And the picture is of that same face, that same old man you had just seen, but his skin looks slightly swollen and bloated. He is completely nude, but covered in hair and dirt. He is like entirely just filthy. It looks like he has not washed himself in months, years, who knows how long. It's a very blurry photo that somebody took. Like, it looks like a Bigfoot photo somebody took of, like, this is clearly there's somebody out in nature who looks this crazy, right? But the only thing about the picture that's not so blurry is that face, and it's just noticeable enough that it's an exact match to that old photograph. And despite this, patient being described as a lobotomy patient, you can see the scars on his head where the lobotomy took place and the sort of dimples in his skull. But he is up, he is about and walking, and his eyes are wide with craziness as he runs around. Then that memory cuts off as it's connected to another memory. As you are seeing that same face in the window of a car you are sitting in. It is raining, it is dark at night, and you have looked up out of the window of your car, shocked to see this face of old Mr. McGee outside your car window. That is when you release that scream, and that is when that scream came out of you in this hospital. All the other nurses and doctors around you have stopped, and a few have dropped things as you have suddenly released the scream, and several people rush over to see what's wrong with you. What do you do? Also, sanity check, sorry. Alright, 1 point of sanity damage on a success.
Alright. Since I passed the sanity check, I will probably double over and fake a really, really bad cramp.
Understood. So yeah, the others will gather around you and figure out what's going wrong, and you describe that to them,
and then be breathing heavily and be I'm fine. Something just seized up. I fell asleep and must have pulled a muscle or something.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. You just shocked us. That's all. Let's get you over here. Sit down. Get you a glass of water. You just take a break. You take a break. We'll perhaps see a sort of time lapse scene as you're sitting in a chair in this hallway, drinking a glass of water, as the normal operations of the hospital kick back into gear around you, but it's a time lapse as we see Hestia just kind of sitting there processing what she's seen for a minute here. As the doctors start rushing back and forth down the hallway in time lapse speed. Now we fade up from there as well. High Tide. Can we get a sort of normal scene from High Tide? A moment in his life that's just an average everyday thing. Getting a cup of coffee in the morning, or driving to work, or something normal.
So is it one of those things that are we able to do a home scene to improve skills and stats and stuff?
You will be able to after. I'm just doing this montage thing first.
Well, I kind of have a way to tie it into that.
Yeah, this could be part of a home scene if you want to be part of your home scene. That's fine with me.
So at this point, probably the anger and frustration of all the mold and everything that he keeps seeing, and every time he feels useless about not being able to help much, he's going to be purchasing guns like an assault rifle, a shotgun, maybe even a sniper, and he's going to be spending a lot of his time in the shooting range.
Ooh, okay.
Just training with guns and trying to get better, and maybe he'll be helped next time instead of slipping.
Yeah, okay. I like that. Let me just check some things real quick here, because I think this makes some sense, but I need to look here. Okay, so a rifle be an unusual expense. We don't actually track money in this game. We do track, there's some things called expense categories. So a rifle would be an unusual expense. You mentioned a few other things like shotguns and things, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's not a fully automatic rifle, it wouldn't be too hard to get your hands on. But an unusual expense is spending your own money here. Okay. So you can, I think what I'm going to say here is, just to represent this a little bit, If you're just buying a bunch of weapons and they're potentially expensive weapons, you're just kind of arming yourself suddenly. This is going to do, you can distribute 3 points of bond damage to whatever bonds you choose, but then you do have these weapons. That's essentially how you pay for it. It's like maybe you're dipping into some of your savings a little bit, and that hurts your bond with your wife, or maybe it's just the time you're spending training the firearms, whatever. But you do end up getting these firearms, though. So
all 3 of those points of damage are going on to my best friend because he was the one that went into the military and I went into the Navy, so he's probably not happy to see me using a ton of weapons and guns.
Understood. Okay. So that makes sense. Yeah, you maybe part of it too is like there's an element of this is where you're spending money now, and you're just doing less fun activities with your friend now, and he's noticed like, well, you don't have enough money to go out and do whatever with me, go to this concert or go on this trip or whatever. It's because you spent it all on weapons, and like that just adds salt to the wound and all this stuff. I like that. Okay, so for training with stuff, improving skills or stats, attempt the skill. You can choose up to 2 skills. Attempt both of them, and if this test fails, you can add 3d6 to the skill.
Okay, so I roll 2 skills, and if each of them fail, I add 3d6 to each.
Yeah, individually. So if you fail one and pass the other, you'd add 3d6 to the one that failed and none to the one that succeeded.
Okay, I was gonna do firearms and agility for like dodge.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yes.
All right, so you get 3d6 to your firearms.
Oh.
Aw. So your dodge does not get any better, unfortunately. Yeah, let's say you can get 1 point better at dodge. That's fine with me. Very slightly. Ooh, pretty good. I do believe that's above average, or maybe very slightly above average. But yes. Cool. Good stuff. All right. Each increase to a stat or skill, so you got 1 of them, reduces a bond by 1. So choose 1 bond, subtract 1 point from it.
Can I take off one from Hunter?
You could. I think we would want to represent that here during these home scenes as like, maybe we want to have some kind of a scene between you that shows why the relationship got slightly more strained, but I don't know how that would shake out here. Maybe you have like Hunter train you or something, and like, I don't know, something goes wrong there. Maybe it's this screen.
I'm going to try to shoot you with this airsoft gun, and you are going to do your best to avoid me. Run.
Why didn't you dodge?
Exactly.
That's
yeah,
funny.
If you want Hunter to be your teacher or something like that, that could make sense.
Yeah, and maybe that's the skill I failed, and that's why he's frustrated with me.
Maybe yes. I shoot you in the eye. It doesn't actually hit your eye, but it gets you like real close, and I show just no remorse. I don't even say I'm gonna. I don't even say I'm sorry. I don't say I'm gonna try harder to not hit you in the face. Like, why didn't you dodge? I'm trying to hit you. Why? I don't get why you're mad. Did you not think I was gonna try to hit you? As I am adjusting my scope, that's like a military grade scope on the top of this cheap airsoft gun.
I like the idea that Hunter did not give High Tide any tips on dodging, just said, okay,
no,
go dodge.
Not at all. You either got it or you don't, which means I either get you or I don't.
And so far I've gotten you every time.
Pretty much.
Excellent.
You build the muscle memory though, real good.
Now you can dodge BBs. Not real bullets, but BBs. And that's why your dodge stat didn't go up. Okay, so that makes some sense. But perhaps you're out here with Hunter. Hunter has the gun aimed at you, an airsoft gun, when all of a sudden, high tide, this terror fills your whole body. Like the emotion of terror is being poured into you, and you are an empty vessel, and suddenly you are full of it. And it's so instant, it's so overwhelming that you cannot help but scream. And once again, like the others, you hardly even realize you are screaming until you hear it yourself, because your brain is just so overwhelmed and not accepting other stimulus at first, other stimuli at first. And then you see a vision, much like many other times that this has happened. This time, again, things you all are seeing are becoming so overwhelming, so vivid, so full of terror, they're getting worse than they were before. High Tide, you see yourself from the outside of your body. You are having an out-of-body experience. You see you're on what appears to be some kind of operating table, but not like any operating table you've seen before. It appears to be made out of clay or something like that. It's just kind of loosely molded into the shape that holds a human body within it, like on top of it, like in that sort of ergonomic shape that like those kind of chairs are in, where the body kind of drapes over it, and it's got like a place for the legs to be elevated slightly, and all of that kind of stuff. But it's made out of like clay that then goes down to the floor. There's no like gaps underneath it for feet or anything like that. It just molds perfectly into the floor underneath it, like it is part of the floor, as if the floor rises up into this operating table. You don't see any tools around or anything like that. And then you see your head has bandages on it, wrapped all around. They are red with blood. Your head turns, not on the table, but your like perspective turns without you willing it to turn. And you realize you don't have any feeling. You don't feel a body beneath you. You can't move your eyes. Your eyes are just seeing what they are being shown. You cannot vocalize. You're not even breathing right now. You don't feel a pulse. You are completely separated from your body. Something is moving you instead. And as your perspective turns, you see the window of the room, and behind it are only stars. Deep blackness and stars extending out, more stars than you've ever seen on the surface of your planet. A number of stars you could only see with no atmosphere between you and those stars. You begin to see bits of fungus holding you, like as if an arm made of this fungus is holding a handle over your eyes, and you're occasionally getting glimpses of it. You try to cry, but you have no eyes to cry. You try to scream, but you have no mouth to scream, as you just look out this window. And then you wake up, and you are screaming here with Hunter. Roll me a sanity check.
Okay.
Uh-oh. Oh, no. Okay, that is going to be 6
no.
points of sanity loss. I died. Critical failure.
Oh, it's not. It's just 6.
Yeah, for Delta Green, sanity loss is on a critical fail, you take the maximum.
This probably triggers Hunter's intermittent explosive disorder, and he's gonna scream back in just startled, immediate terror.
I like that.
Can I put some of it onto the bond with Hunter?
Yeah,
Because he's
absolutely.
right here.
I think this makes sense. Roll a d4.
Yes!
Okay, so 4 of it goes to your bond with Hunter, as both of you just start screaming at each other.
Right,
And you don't need to worry about the willpower, because you'll regain the willpower.
It's weird that the two of us screaming together in the woods isn't cathartic in some way, but it's definitely not.
You're both just screaming at each other in the woods, and somehow you come out of that situation like disliking each other more.
I feel like at the end of it, the two of us are just like, not the goddamn hotel room again.
Yes. You two have just screamed out your trauma in the woods together so much that now, like, looking at each other just reminds you of your traumas that you've screamed at.
Oh.
I think that's how your relationship got harmed here. Anyways, we rise from that scene as you two scream back and forth at each other in the woods, frustrated, angry, terrified, full of adrenaline. And more months pass. It's getting towards the end of summer. Now we can do our home scenes. If anyone has ideas for their home scenes. Yeah, the silent ride back was real awkward, absolutely. In Hunter's truck, yes. Oh, that's so good. So yeah, if anyone has an idea for a home scene and wants to jump in with it, we can...
Are you guys going to go out in the woods to patch up the bond now?
Well, I think that was at least my home scene, because that was one of the
true.
trainings, so...
Yeah, I kind of don't have an idea for Hunter beyond what we've done, because he is just so completely broken down at this point. Like, I don't know what he would have more as regarding home scenes. I think he's just kind of on a downward spiral at this point.
That's fair. I mean, you can always... I feel like Return to Nature is a pretty good, like, here's just a
I don't think he wants
do.
to return to nature anymore.
Yeah,
I think he wants to
fair.
be as far away from the trees at this point as possible. He's going to move further into the city. His life is going to be demonstrably worse, but he's further from the trees, so that's good.
So another thing you could potentially do then, if Hunter was specifically trying to find, you know, he was looking for trouble, but like also looking for, it sounded like unnatural trouble in a few ways, like just trying to
Yes.
be sort of a warrior against the unnatural, even when he's not been hired by Delta Green to do it. There is a stay on the case home scene in which you just kind of try to find more leads and more evidence for things, or this could also be...
Oh, that's a good idea.
There's also Study the Unnatural.
That's a
Well,
possibility
he's
too.
not really... He's kind of turned away from doing the actual studying. First, he
Ooh.
definitely nothing involving screens. He doesn't want anything to do with that. Like, he's not really much one for reading either.
I have an idea.
Yeah.
You have previously learned a spell, but don't really know what it does yet, or what its capabilities or costs are. And I feel like it could be possible to spend some time trying to figure that out, either by trial and error, or trying to study it, or I don't know. There's potential leads there to chase.
I think he's been deliberately avoiding it for years. But maybe he feels like there will ever sooner be an unavoidable confrontation, and maybe he needs to figure out if this will be an asset to him when whatever goes down goes down.
Makes sense to me. So do you think he would spend some time working on that then?
I do think so, yeah.
Okay. So, choose one bond, which is probably one of your one-sided bonds, and perhaps it could be High Tide, just because to mirror that
We'll do High Tide.
Reduce that bond by 1d4. Could have been worse. You know, you weren't the one being shot at in that situation, so I guess your bond didn't drop as much. But okay, and then your unnatural skill is going to go up by I'm gonna say 1d10 highest, or 2d10 keep high. So advantage on a d10. I didn't roll it. There we go. 10. Okay. So your unnatural skill is going to go up by 10. Your sanity is going to go down by 10.
Thank you. I now have unnatural 10.
You have some unnatural knowledge here as you've started to figure out how this spell works. And the spell you had was Exaltation of the Flesh, I believe.
Yes. Carved in symbols and sigils on the flesh itself.
Yes. Let's see. I had this open in a tab here. There it is. Okay. So I believe you already know the activation time is like about a minute, and it takes 1d6. The activation time is about a minute. Yes. It can cost a variable amount of sanity and willpower to cast. So what I'm actually just going to do is send you this table, which shows you how much sanity and willpower you can sort of dedicate to the spell when you cast it, choosing your option. And it will give you armor.
Thank you.
Up to 8 points of armor if you really just want to dump everything in there. It might be all of your willpower you have remaining at that point, right? And like a massive chunk of sanity. But you figure out, perhaps testing this spell on yourself. It lasts for 24 hours, and you've once you like cast it on yourself, your sense of feeling almost dims a little bit, and that's when you get your first idea that like maybe this is protecting you. Perhaps you test some things on yourself, like starting with small things like just trying to like see if stubbing your toe hurts, or maybe hitting your hand with a hammer hurts, not too hard, and you don't feel a thing. There's not a mark on your flesh. You move on to bigger and bigger things until, with enough dedication of willpower points and sanity, you find that casting the spell on yourself ahead of time, you can even like deflect small like pistol rounds off of your flesh and things like that. Like it can really beef up your flesh for a bit. So that you have uncovered how the spell you are granted works.
And even still, Hunter doesn't feel good about it because he thinks the things he's really scared of aren't going to care about whether or not I can deflect a bullet off my hand. But it's better to have it than to not have it.
And also, granted is a strong word.
Yeah.
A good home scene there. Hestia, do we have a home scene for you?
She's still pretty new to this journey, so I think yeah, she's gonna go take a hike in nature, leave all her responsibilities behind, and regain some sanity.
Okay, absolutely. So back to nature. Reduce one bond by 1 as you let other responsibilities lapse. Roll a sand test. Success. Add 1d4 sanity points. And yeah, I'll give a little bit of a description of what you do here. You're just going out camping.
Yep, just gonna go take a hike. An overnight hike without anybody, and maybe she forgot to tell her partner.
Yeah, that's probably why the bond gets damaged. That makes a lot of sense. Because yeah, it has to be like significant enough time to like have an effect. So yeah, an overnight hike, that makes some sense. Just really suddenly cutting yourself off from the world and just being alone. That's how you regain a little bit of sanity here. All right. So a few more months pass. It's winter. And Hunter and High Tide, you two have another vision, much like you did before. I'm not going to make you roll sanity for it this time, though. Like you did before, you're in the middle of doing something, And you suddenly have this feeling well up within you, but you felt this before. You resist the urge to scream so suddenly, but it still bubbles up within you, and you really want to. So I'll leave it up to you if you actually scream or not during whatever you're doing. But you suddenly get this vision. Both of you are sort of sharing a vision here, so I'll let you both act in this vision. And also, Hematite is there. So even though Hestia is not getting this vision, Hematite, if you would like to take actions as Hematite in this vision, you may. The three of you are in the woods. The woods Hunter has seen many times. Perhaps he has described it to you once or twice over the past years you've known each other. This forest where he's being chased by something or chasing something. You're there. Grace is there. Those agents you were talking to before, that Halo and guys, the rest of H-Cell, in like multiple versions of H-Cell, are all there. And you're fighting something in the woods. That same shadow Hunter was seeing before. Endless rounds of bullets are being fired into this thing. Like, literally rocket-propelled grenades are being fired into this thing. All of you are covered, like, head to toe in, like, full SWAT gear. Like, you are decked out in some of the best, like, combat equipment you could get. You're all wearing, like, night vision goggles. You're super prepared for whatever this is. One of you's got a flamethrower, maybe it's Hunter, and you're all just charging in there. This is a terrifying scene you find yourself in, but everybody is just shooting whatever they can at this shape you can hardly see in the darkness. What are you guys doing? Are you guys just joining in the fight and just shooting what you got, or anyone running? Anyone puzzled by the experience?
I think Hematite's probably got some grenades that she's lobbing around.
Excellent.
Hell yeah. Yeah, the Hunter has dreams and stuff like this all the time. This is nothing new. He has a source of fire in his hand. He has something to point it at. He is going to pull the trigger.
All right.
I'm just gonna be firing at it too. Just show.
Excellent. So all of you are just shooting whatever extreme violence you can towards this thing, but it never flinches. And it gets closer and it gets closer. You see a shape in the darkness swing out, and one of your companions, one of the other members of H-Cell, just gets swatted out into the darkness. You hear a sickening crunch as this like tentacle-like thing. You can't really see its shape. You don't really know like what kind of flesh it's made of or what substance is made of, but something shaped like a tentacle swats that member, and they just go flying off into the woods, their gun tumbling out of their hand, blood splats everywhere. People are screaming and firing their guns. This thing steps closer with a terrifying, heavy step on the ground. Do you guys stand your ground?
Yes.
You said it's like a shadow thing?
It's in the darkness right now. You can't really see it. You're wearing night vision goggles, but like its shape is hard to see precisely right now. It's kind of ducking in and out of like the trees and stuff. It's just hard to see exactly what it is, at least at this moment.
Well, I've always got my trusty dusty flashlight.
Oh. I mean, you also have night vision goggles on, probably, but
Yeah, well,
I feel like those
always
two
make
things
everything
don't combine.
green.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess I'll just be shooting at it still.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure night vision goggles, if you like turn on a light, are just, it's very bad. Like, maybe I think newer night vision goggles have like features against that and stuff, but
Just
anyways.
flashbang the entire team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, you're standing your ground there. Hematite, you just throwing more grenades? Hematite?
Oh, right. Push to talk.
Yes,
Crap.
you're good.
I've been saying things.
No! Oh, that sucks.
Uh-oh. Let me switch that real quick.
Well,
Alright.
are you throwing more grenades?
Yes. Never enough grenades.
Okay, more grenades. The Hematite just got like multiple belts of grenades on. Again, this thing does not seem to be flinching. It growls, but it's not a growl of pain. It's like a almost indifferent growl as it approaches, but the growl is so, it's almost just like a breath that it releases, that just whatever fucked up biology this thing has, it just comes out as like this weird rolling growl. And this just causes like a primal fear in all of you. It is the sound of a predator. It is the sound of a predator for humans specifically, right? Like it's an instinctual fear you have. And you realize if this thing can growl, it has mouths. And as it gets closer, you can see, yes, multiple mouths scattered across this knotted, gnarly figure. Its feet are hooved, and it has many tentacles stretching up from there like a tree. They're wrapped around each other and hooked in different directions like a leafless tree. Everything covered with mouths, all of these mouths drooling this dark green, milky substance as it approaches. But it's not approaching slowly. Despite its indifferent breath, it is approaching very quickly. It is swatting more of your team members out of the way. One of its tentacles grabs one of them, brings it up to a mouth, and just bites off the entire upper half from like the rib cage up of this person. Blood goes everywhere. It discards the rest of the body. It kind of chews on the body armor and keeps advancing towards you all. Do you hold your ground?
Yes.
I think
more
this is
fire.
the point where hematite pulls the pin and charges it, because that's what she always does.
True. Hematite rushes in with a grenade. Hunter sprays more fire. What does High Tide do?
Just keep shooting at this point.
They just keep shooting. The bullets keep sinking into the like wood-like flesh of this thing, this very solid substance, and you can see the bullets like sink into it. It doesn't look like the bullets are reflecting off of it or anything, but it's like the bullets sink in, and then a moment later, like the hole has been patched up. It's like this thing just doesn't care. Like the bullets just went in, and okay, well, whatever. Let's just patch that up real quick. Hematite rushes in, grabs a grenade. It opens its mouth, it grabs you with some of its tentacles and lifts you up to one of the many, many mouths across its surface. Hematite, what are you doing?
Pin and hope for a chain explosion, because I'm wearing a whole belt of grenades.
All right. It shoves hematite in its mouth, and as it chews, a series of explosions erupt out of its mouth. Blood, gore, and shrapnel goes everywhere, just spraying out of this thing's mouth like it is projectile vomiting. But none of the other mouths react. The other tentacles don't budge. They continue their process exactly as they have been. No impact has been made. It catches up to the other two of you, tearing through you as it charges. And then you all wake up. Once again, doing whatever you were doing before, potentially screaming. As that was quite the situation you found yourselves in your memories.
Hestia was not part of this memory at all.
Hestia was not. Actually, I think Hestia would be. I did say like all of H-Cell was there, and Hestia was H-Cell. So, yes, it was kind of a weird H-Cell that had like all of the versions of H-Cell in it. It had these other agents that have only been NPCs in it. It had Hestia, it had Hematite. It even had Grace there, even though she was like the your handler basically. But like everyone was taken out by that, whatever that memory was.
After waking up and screaming, I would probably just go, well, shit, and go back to bed.
Yeah, Hunter doesn't even scream. This is just normal at this point.
I think
Just pops
Hestia does a
another sleeping
lot
pill.
of deep breathing and maybe tries to write down visual depiction, not like sketching, but like write down what she remembers of each person to take to the other group to see if they know any of these people, because they mentioned something about time being all wonky.
Yeah, makes sense. Just jot down a dream journal type thing, recording whatever details you have before they leave your mind, and you get back to whatever you're doing. more months pass, and you start to wonder, you thought Delta Green would keep you pretty involved these days, but it doesn't seem like it has quite yet. And I think that's where we'll leave it for tonight, because there is more coming, but I think I can save it for when Dan's here, and when Dan does his home scenes, then I can tie in more of these things and get the final mission underway. So, a bit of a short one tonight, but we got through some home scenes, we got through some drama and stuff, some scary stuff. But that's where we'll leave it. Thank you guys for playing.
Thank you very much for running. This was, though it was shorter, it was a crazy session even still.
Yeah. Well, you can't have downtime be too boring,
Yeah.